Throughout the last 16 years in the writing and publishing industry, I have experienced so many ups and downs and chaotic moments and times when I've had this perfect plan and then everything just completely exploded. And here I'm all about, owning your unique words and I'm all about, taking that responsibility. But there are plenty of times when you can have all of your ducks in the row and then the ducks just turn psychotic and go to a rave and join the squirrels and life is bad. And this isn't supposed to happen. I have been there, and my last quarter, which was the third quarter of 2025, was another one of those crazy, chaotic experiences. And in this third quarter roundup of the Author Culture podcast, I'm going to be sharing some of my crazy, chaotic life explosions from the third quarter, how things worked out anyway, and how I ended up getting a book done in the middle of all of that, which is a very interesting way to learn how to dictate fiction. And make sure you hang around to the end of the podcast or the video if you're watching this on YouTube or Substack, because I'm going to try something in this episode that I've never done before on a recording. It's kind of scary, but it should be pretty fun, and I am looking forward to sharing that moment with you. So please do stick around to the end because it's going to be a hoot. This is Janeen Ippolito of Author Culture. Let's chat. Hey there, welcome back to Author Culture, where we're all about sustainable success for authors navigating the chaotic publishing world. And we're also all about science fiction and fantasy joy because, hey, I'm a sci-fi and fantasy author, and I find these two genres especially joyous. So whether you showed up for some writing craft tips, marketing help, publishing commentary insight, or just to nerd out and geek out about fandoms, you are in the right place, and I am so glad you're here. And real quick, if you haven't already, do make sure that you hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. And if you're also really into getting exclusive sneak peeks of whatever I'm working on, please do join the Author Culture Insiders, which is my paid subscription on Substack. You get sneak peeks of whatever I'm working on in the moment. For authors just like you get advanced notice on those things, you get access to the Author Culture chat, and you get my undying gratitude for helping the mission here at Author Culture to help authors just like you stay sane and celebrate more sci-fi and fantasy. Now, as you may have guessed, this is one of my chatty vlog style roundup videos that I do once a quarter. And this is a great time for you to listen as I'm talking through all the things that I have accomplished or not accomplished in the last quarter. You can learn from my experience, learn from my mistakes. We're just going to have some fun together here because, yes, I might be further down on the journey than a lot of you, but we're all going to the same destination, which is called get the book written, get the book out there, get the book published, market the book, rinse and repeat. And hopefully, if you're just as crazy as I am, you actually have learned to love most of this journey, or at least are in a place of like, I can't stop doing it, Janeen. Sometimes I kind of think I want to, and then I just have to keep going anyway. I get you. One of my latest little pitch lines that I use at book tables when people come up to my book table and just kind of can't take in all the different books I've written is I actually introduce myself saying, "Hi, I'm Janeen Ippolito. These are all my books because I started writing and no one stopped me." It's a nice icebreaker, and actually it's also sometimes kind of true. I'm like, why did I do this to myself? But then also, I like writing most of the time. Yes, need to, got to, have to, all of that stuff. And if there was going to be a quarter that was going to test my resolve all over again, the third quarter in 2025 is that quarter. So back in my previous video, I was talking about how the Veracin Blade, which I've started calling the Veracin Blade because I realized, I actually based the title on the idea of a knife called the Veracin Blade, and that use of Veracin is actually based on the word veracity, truth. It's a truth knife. So technically, I should actually be calling it the Veracin Blade. So all of you out there who have said, "Oh, isn't it like the Veracin Blade?" You're technically right, and I'm technically wrong, but it's also my book, so I guess I can basically use the pronunciation I want to use. But anyway, here it is. It came out. Ta-da! Super exciting. Look at that. All the shiny book. And here's the thing, I wasn't planning a huge launch for this, and I am really glad that I wasn't planning a huge launch for this because then my life kind of exploded in a pretty heartbreaking way. So it was the night before I was going to leave for Realmmakers 2025, and I was getting some lists together because it was a Monday night, and that Tuesday I was going to finish my packing and head out with my friend. We were carpooling out to do this long drive out to Michigan. And so I was getting everything ready, and my husband was starting on some video gaming. And then he got a phone call that his mom had collapsed at the science camp she was directing at the Machen Retreat and Conference Center. So, yes, this was the night before I was set to leave. So, I wasn't even sure I was going to make it to the Realmmakers conference because depending on how her hospitalization went, I might have just been like zipping right down to Virginia where she ended up being hospitalized. And I might have just been down there. You know, when this thing happens to family, you just go. And so Tuesday was kind of this back and forth of how bad is it? Do we know? Do we not know? Everything was really up in the air. I eventually got the go ahead from my husband to just go to the conference and do the thing there. And so it was a very different kind of conference for me. Maybe you can relate. Sometimes conferences go beautifully and smoothly and you're like, oh, I feel great and zippy. And sometimes you go to conferences and you kind of go in feeling shattered. I was in the second boat there. Praise God, I have really awesome friends at the Realmmakers Conference. It is a great community of Christian authors of sci-fi and fantasy. I've gone for like the last 12 years. And so while I do mentor there and I do have all my books to sell and show up in kind of an official capacity, I also find it's just one big family reunion, and I needed that, and it was good because that was a hard week. And so let's just say my brain was not thinking about this book I just released, except for the fact that also my mother-in-law, she did beta read this book for me. It was actually the first book that she ever beta read for me because she was lefty. And the main character in this book is a lefty, and I wanted a lefty to beta read it to make sure I got everything right because I'm not a lefty, and I was like, I might be missing some things here. So long and the short of it, by around July 15th and onward, my life was very different. I came home from a Realmakers conference. My husband, who had all these different camps going on, was trying to figure out how to pass off responsibility for them or do other things so he could be there for his family. I was holding down the fort here. My life was crazy and upended. And yeah, this is not the time when you're thinking about doing huge launches, understandably. And so through that process, as I am dealing with the back and forth of my mother-in-law being in the hospital with very uncertain health prognoses, my husband's going back and forth, and everything is just kind of chaotic. Me being me, writing is something I do for my sanity, not just to make money. I do both. I do like to write and get a profit from it, but I also do write just because it helps me to process. And so interestingly enough, that made it so that I ended up working on a book that I hadn't intended. So those of you who have been following me on social media, I've been talking about Frogs at Noontide, which is my Frog Prince retelling that I'm in the process of editing. That was written in 2.5 weeks via dictation during this incredibly chaotic time. Now, I had planned to work on a Beauty and the Beast retelling during that time, but guess what? When one of your loved ones is in the hospital with an uncertain prognosis, you may not want to write a story where one of the protagonists has one of their parents dead and one of their parents deathly sick with an uncertain prognosis. I just couldn't face that. That wasn't going to happen for me. And so I'm like, okay, I cannot write Beast at Tea Time right now. This is not going to go well for me. I just need something that I can kind of escape in and make myself smile. And Frogs at Noontide was from a previous project that I've been kind of playing around with. I had an outline for it. And I had recently done a dictation boot camp, Sarah Elizabeth Sawyer's dictation boot camp, which I recommend if you haven't done dictation before. She does an excellent job and she's an awesome person. And I really need to have her on the podcast sometime. But anyway, I'd done that. I had already done dictation with my nonfiction and that had gone well. And so I just sat there for like half an hour a day. And it was just my happy place to just put my headset on and just dictate into Audacity and just tell the story. And it was just a way for me to kind of escape and relax. And through that, I ended up getting a book written. So that's pretty cool. I'm okay with this. I am still working on editing it because now my life is kind of crazy in a different way. But that's cool. It's there. That kind of happened. And for those of you who don't know the rest of the story with my mother-in-law, she did pass on to Jesus on August 8th, 2025. So needless to say, that has definitely affected the rest of my life going forward with that. Of course, with these kind of situations, even though I have a lot of peace about where she is, that does leave upheaval in your life and upheaval in moving forward and figuring out new normals and everything. I have gone through losses of different kinds before, but it's never easy, and I'm aware of that. And again, this is the reason why I believe in sustainable success so much for authors. And one thing you might actually say, well, why didn't you just take a break from different things? And I did take a break for a bit, but also it's because I have gone through so much and continue to go through things that really spurs me on to continue showing up here for all of you guys, to just encourage you as authors, or if you're readers who are showing up as well, or if you just like to listen to this podcast. Life is tricky and life is hard, and life can be ridiculously hard. And when you're trying to do things through hardships and through hard things, you need that encouragement, and you need to understand that you're not alone in that, and that yes, you can move forward. It can be a lot slower. It can go from feeling like you're speeding along to like going through mud, and your to-do list can go from like 10 things to like one or two things maybe, and that can be challenging, but also it is worth it to keep going towards those goals. I believe that your unique words are worth it, and so that's one of the things that keeps me going with all of this, because it matters in the same way that I also believe that science fiction and fantasy matters, and enjoying that kind of escapism matters, and that books can matter just as much if they provide you with an escape when things are hard, at the same time that they can matter because they take you through those hard things on the page. And I know if you're watching this or listening to this, you may fall into the category of, oh, when things are hard in life, I go for cozy, or if things are hard in life and I go for harder things in fiction because I just need the catharsis. I need to go through that journey. Either of these perspectives and reasons for reading is totally valid, but I think these things should be spoken about. And so I'm here doing that. What I am doing now in my life has been a lot of triage, and actually right now has still been a lot of catch up, because when you have those big life events happen, a lot of the other things that you planned on doing kind of fall by the wayside, but they don't go away forever. So you have to get them done later. And now it's a little under 2 months out from her passing, and hello, later. Later is happening with increasing frequency. All of those things that I said, okay, I'm going to do that later, that is now. And so a lot of my life right now is just triaging tasks and figuring out, okay, what's the most important thing to get done today? Okay, this was a harder day. I'll put that off till tomorrow. And again, if you know me or you've stuck around with this podcast, I already have chronic conditions, and we're getting into fall and winter. So my seasonal affective disorder, the way that I process grief is it just kind of kicked in early. So I felt like I had that energy loss way back in August, and it just kept going. So I've been doing a lot of triaging. I am really thankful for dictation because it is a fun and easy way for me to tell stories. I will say that's not true for everyone all the time. From what I've heard, a lot of people have to spend like 20 hours of really putting in the work to figure it out. That is not the case for me. I show up and I talk and I get words on the page, and I'm thankful for that. Sometimes you kind of need those easier wins for when life is hard. And if you are someone who is doing dictation and you're finding it more difficult, again, I recommend checking out Sarah Elizabeth Sawyer's resources online. They're fantastic. And also check out Seth Ring's YouTube channel and his resources. He also has a lot of great encouraging things with dictation, and he's doing a lot of great things on his YouTube channel. He is a pretty cool guy overall. So go over there and hang out with Seth too. And I'm also actively editing Frogs at Noontide for a publication in early 2026. I have the cover, which is really, really pretty. I was able to get it done by Yvonne Less of Art for Artists. She does great work. She did my first 2 covers. She did a cover for Frogs at Noontide, which is just, it made me smile and laugh to see it. And if you're on my fiction email newsletter, you will get to see it before anyone else. And then she also did some tweaking. So I do have a cover for Beast at Tea Time when that comes out in the future. I actually also am in the process of getting the Steel City Genie books recovered because my cover designer moved on to a great new career. She's doing awesome things, but one of those things is not designing book covers. So because I have more books planned in Alice's series, I figured now is a good time to just get those books recovered from the start. So I am going through that process at a steady pace with this new designer, and they are great. They're sparkly. She's doing a great job of capturing the essence of the previous covers in her own way. And so that's happening. And I have to say, it has been fun to do some editing with a very cozy kind of book. And I've even found that my reading has gotten more cozy. This does often happen when I'm going through tricky things. I am one of those that when life is hard, I reach for rereads, or I reach for cozy, or I reach for humor, comedy, rom-coms, all of those things, stuff where I can exactly predict the ending in every single beat. Please give me predictability. That is where I am at. Or I will also binge urban fantasy because, going through hard things with sarcasm and lots of fun magic and all those things. But it has been fun to just dive into a lot of cozy reads. And here's a little bit of an aside for all of you authors out there who are sometimes really hesitant to keep talking about your book and mentioning your book over and over again. One of the books I am reading is Miss Percy's Pocket Guide to the Care and Keeping of British Dragons. Pretty sure that's the one. Miss Percy's Pocket Guide to the Care and Feeding of British Dragons. Yes, that's it. Yes, I did just check that online to make sure I had it right. It's a fairly long title, but it is a very fun and cozy book. Now, this book had been recommended to me for the last 2 to 3 years by a trusted author friend, Carrie Ann Noble, who's another amazing author. If you haven't already, just check out her books and read all of them because they're all great. But anyway, she's been recommending this book to me for 2 to 3 years, and it took me to just now to actually pick it up and get it. But here's the thing. It took me 2 to 3 years to pick up this book that was recommended to me repeatedly from a trusted friend. How much more do people need nudged and lovingly reminded online that your book exists and that they should give it a try? So keep running the ads or keep showing up on socials, keep mentioning things in your newsletter, keep finding new ways to share about how cool your books are, because even more so now, readers need nudged many times for that. And it's just the way things go now. And I myself am one of those readers, as is evidenced by the fact that I am now enjoying this thoroughly cozy and fantastic book that I wish I'd started sooner. But again, for 2 to 3 years, my friend, who I trust and love, mentioned it, and I was like, oh, that's nice. So, authors, keep creatively, wonderfully mentioning your books. Readers need nudged. Me, as a reader, I need nudged. And that is the way things go sometimes. And so here is that little extra special segment that I said I was going to try for all of you guys. I am going to be reading aloud a few sections from my latest published book, The Veracin Blade. And I think we're going to try to make the Veracin Blade a thing. So this is me, Janeen Ippolito, saying, no longer is this the Veracin Blade. I am going to change the pronunciation to the Veracin Blade because it makes more sense, because the name Veracin is based on the word veracity, having to do with truth. And so it really should be the Veracin Blade. Ta-da! The Veracin Blade by Janeen Ippolito. I'm fine. Really, I am. Ignore the piles of stress knitting in a corner. I'll donate all those blankets to a shelter. After so many centuries of life and death, there could be worse vices. I prefer to call it therapy. And unlike actual therapy, it produces tangible objects that can be passed on to help others. Whereas if I went to actual therapy, I would have to give the therapist a potion afterward to blur their memory of whatever I had said. That would be unpleasantly deceptive. I don't like deception. It's one reason I like being married to an ice dragon shifter with just enough tree elf blood to prevent him from direct lies. And he's naturally direct anyway, which makes it all the more ironic that we have to keep our marriage hidden. That my life depends on hiding from others lest they put me in a cage and try to force tears from my eyes. That I have to pretend I'm strong. That I'm fine even while my magic weakens. And I'm blocked from Telthare, the homeland of phoenixes like me. None of this is fine. No amount of knitting can make it so. But I'm not giving up. Not until my blade is found and my magic restored. I will succeed or die trying. Death is infinitely preferable to a cage. Chapter 1. The printer was asking for it, and I don't say that lightly. Centuries of deaths have made me wary of dealing it out to others who can't regenerate like phoenixes. Life is precious, and I'm generous with mercy. But not when it came to rock-cursed electronics that hadn't even existed until the late 1960s. Of all the stupid... Ugh! I smacked the side of the mechanical beast. Sometimes that worked, but not this time. It wasn't impressed. Putrid, mold-stench piece of junk! And now I'm swearing like a tree elf. I could blame Rafe for that. I reached out through our bond to my ice dragon mate. Well, ice dragon with tree elf lineage on his mother's side. You're a bad influence on me, love. You and your tree elf expletives. Who was the object of the expletives? His mental voice was smooth, blunted by a crisp edge, as usual. A rock-cursed printer that keeps jamming and not communicating with any of the laptops or connecting properly to the Wi-Fi. I eyed the hammer on the counter next to my makeshift desk area, my fingers clenching and unclenching. I'm considering the final solution. It's a printer. Amusement filtered through his words. The word itself is an expletive. Destroy at will. I rolled my eyes, my lips twitching. See, a bad influence. I need to be more patient. A simple device shouldn't be getting under my skin like this. Even with my weak psychometry, I could sense the printer had a history of obstinance. I had to be the better person. Except, it was a printer, so it didn't count as a person. Patience is weakness with printers. They can smell fear. Making a strong stand is the only solution. A grin stretched across my face. I couldn't help it. Thanks for the help, I chuckled, the action releasing some of my stress. I think I'll try reading it with psychometry, see if I can detect any manufacturer errors in its history. Do you have enough magic to spare? That thought from him had an undertone of concern. I straightened, tugging at my blue-flowered blouse. I'll be fine. Adara, I'm fine. I can handle it. It won't take much. And thank you for listening to this little quick read aloud. And make sure that you tune into next week's episode where I will be doing a full-ish book haul of what I've read over the last quarter. I'm probably not going to cover everything because I do binge read when I'm stressed. And so, I'll be there in the hospital and there's really not much you can do sometimes. So I'll just sit there and I'll just be reading book after book after book. I got through a lot of books in the last 3 months. So we're just going to get my top books and also some shares of what I am reading now. It's going to be fun. It's going to be great. Make sure that you show up for that next episode. This is Janeen Ippolito saying that your existence is fantastic. Now go forth and be awesome.